Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today I wanted to talk a bit about different movies, post-apocalyptic or survival movies that you perhaps haven't seen before. And I'm going to start with the ones that I think are least commonly known and progressively get to the ones that are more commonly known. And some of these you might know, and there's definitely a lot that I haven't put on this list because I feel they are very well known. So, but feel free to try to stump me with whatever movies you have in mind. So I'm going to do this quick because there's about 80. And when I do something, I try to go all the way. So I'm going to try to do them as quick as possible, just provide brief information about each. And they're not all the best movies, but they're definitely, if you're a post-apocalyptic enthusiast like myself, that probably didn't sound right, but if you are, if you're into that sort of thing, into the survival genre and whatnot, then you might be interested in these films. So the first one is The Signal. Very interesting movie. It's about, the plot essentially is there's this signal that's broadcast through all electronics, and anybody in the vicinity of those electronics is sort of brainwashed into thinking, and everybody starts going crazy and, doing things to each other. There's another movie coming out next year called Cell. It's based on a Stephen King novel, which is a very similar premise, and everybody in that movie, everyone who has a cell phone hears a phone call or answers a phone call, and whoever answers it turns into these mindless zombies who go around killing each other. The next one is Blindness. That one's about basically the city. Everybody in the city goes blind for indefinite amount of time, and chaos ensues. The fourth one is The Divide. This is sort of a story about, the surviving nuclear fallout in close quarters. So, and it just shows how things get progressively worse for the people who are forced to reside in close quarters. The fifth one is called Hunger, and this one's it is a survival movie. It's not really a doomsday movie, but you can find it on YouTube. It was made in 2009, and it's about cannibalism, essentially. It's about this psychotic serial killer who puts people in these situations where they have to survive, and eventually they're forced to consider eating one another because they've been trapped in this place for such a long period of time, and he's watching this all on cameras and stuff. But it's sort of interesting. It does show sort of how the hunger would progress and how people would eventually be forced to do pretty heinous things to each other. The next one is called The Quiet Earth, and I haven't seen it for a while, but it's an older film, and it's about one guy who, as far as he knows, he's the last man on Earth, and so he's just running around, and they don't really. I can't remember what happened exactly in the movie, and eventually, things happen in there, and I'm not going to ruin it. The next one's called Hell, and that one's from 2011, and this one to me almost seems like a side story of The Road or something like that. It's deals with cannibalism, deals with the world's fucked, the planet's fucked. Pardon my language, but so check that out. The next one's called Last Night. That was from 1999, Canadian movie, sort of one of these Gen X type movies. Pretty PC, but it definitely gets into some of the dynamics of what might happen prior to some doomsday scenario, some disastrous scenario, if everybody knew it would happen. Now it is kind of a comedy, and it's kind of like it's like another movie I'll talk about, but it's worth a watch. I mean, if you're into this genre, it's not really about the doomsday issue itself. It's more about people and life and stuff like that. Another one is called Retreat, and that one is basically this couple goes to this island, and this guy comes on the island and he's telling them, that there's this virus that's been unleashed and everybody's dying, and they're on this vacation, so they don't know what's going on in the outside world, and there's lots of twists and stuff like that. So you can check that one out also. Goodbye World is one that I just seen recently. It's okay. It's how people deal with the aftermath of in various communities and whatnot. A little cheesy at times, some bad acting, and not the highest budget movie, but definitely worth watching. Extinction is a zombie movie, which I think it's 2013. People in that are having problems which go beyond the zombie aspect, and I'm not going to spoil that one either. Where the Wind Blows is a post-nuclear fallout film. It's actually an animated film. It was made in the 80s. Check that one out. The Island is with Ewan McGregor. I think it was 2005, and I don't really want to ruin that one either, but it's a very interesting movie. It deals with cloning and stuff like that. The Way Back is a movie about these guys who are trying to escape from a World War II style Russian concentration camp of sorts, and it's very interesting. They have to travel through all these various terrains and stuff like that. I think it was put out in 2011. The Last of Us video game. It's a video game, but you can watch it on YouTube. You could watch, there's a guy who plays through the whole game, and he doesn't really say much, and it really just plays just like a movie. It's actually really good to watch. It's pretty interesting to see. That deals with all sorts of stuff that you would see. Everything you would see in The Walking Dead, you'll see in the game The Last of Us, but it's the graphics are so good, it literally is like watching a movie, and it's very engaging. State of Emergency is another zombie movie that's available to watch on YouTube. Kind of low budget, but good acting, good cinematography, well written. No Blade of Grass is one that was put out in the 70s, and can't remember who's in it. Some British equivalent of Charlton Heston type thing, and basically it takes place in Britain, where chaos is just erupted because of economic collapse and environmental collapse, and this guy has to protect his family and stuff like that. Dread is a dystopian film about excessive rule of law and just how in the future everybody's forced into cities, and living conditions are pretty shitty, and law is pretty harsh in some ways. Excellent movie. Really, really great movie. Not the Judge Dredd. I think I might have seen that one, but this one's called Dread, and it was made in 2012. Number 20 is Britain Blackout. It's the equivalent of American Blackout, so very similar to that. Check out Britain Blackout. It's a mockumentary. All Is Lost is Robert Redford surviving on a boat, lost at sea. It's a good one. La Horde is a zombie film about a bunch of gangsters that are doing some gang stuff in a semi-abandoned apartment building. There's a few people who live there in a really shitty end of town, and the zombie apocalypse breaks out, and these gangsters and cops are forced to work together to kill all the zombies. Children of Men is a good movie. It's about sort of talks about how people become very sterile in the future and they can't have children, and immigration. It deals with that. It deals with a lot of things about a lot of issues and globalization and stuff like that. How it's dystopian in a way, but there's definitely some anarchic parts to it. Touching the Void is a documentary about two guys who wanted to hike, I can't remember which mountain it was, but it's a very good show about survival and how they survived and the steps that they took to do that. The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and I can't remember what the other guy's name was. Excellent outdoor survival movie, probably one of the best, I think. The Young Ones is a newer one, and it's post-apocalyptic. It's about the world in drought, and it came out in 2014, and everybody's fighting for water, and it looks like it's a bit more about the social dynamics of the apocalypse as opposed to dealing really with the action-packed aspect of that. Dead Set Serious, I've talked about that one before. Big Brother meets Dawn of the Dead, essentially. Excellent movie, really underrated, should be known about more. Hyundai, I'll post a link to it because I think I pronounce it the right way. Japanese tsunami film, never seen it, but it's gotten really good reviews, so that's one I would suggest people look at. The Well is another sort of lower budget one, and that one's about drought also, and how water is very scarce in the future and people are fighting over it. Hell in the Pacific is an interesting one. A Japanese guy and American guy get caught on the same island together, and it's at the height of World War II, and they're basically the only ones left on this island, and they don't have any guns, I don't think, and they're both trying to stay alive, but they're both trying to kill each other, so it's kind of interesting. Stakeland is basically like The Walking Dead, only with vampires. Vampires have ravaged the earth, but the vampires aren't as cheesy, sort of Count Dracula type things. They're a bit more, gritty. What else? 30 Days of Night takes place, it's a vampire movie that takes place in the Arctic. If anybody knows the Arctic, during a certain part of the season in winter, there's no sunlight for many days. So I think it's 30 days, and obviously you know what plot is going to ensue then. So The Dead is a movie about a couple military guys in Africa who are trying to survive a zombie outbreak. It's low budget. The acting isn't the best, but it's definitely watchable. The Quarantine series, they have a couple different movies. One of them that I kind of liked was Terminal, and it's basically zombie. It's people who find themselves in the midst of this universe in which a zombie outbreak is happening, and they're quarantining various places, and it's the goings on inside the places that are quarantined, and of course people are turning into zombies within these quarantine areas. Right at Your Door is a movie about a dirty bomb that goes off in a city, and a guy who is sheltering in place and trying to quarantine himself within his apartment, only to, I'm not going to ruin it, but there's a bit of a twist to that. The Rover is a newer one that just came out in 2014, and it looks pretty good. It's I think it got about a 6.5 out of 10, which isn't bad for a doomsday film. And I think it's just about a guy who's trying to survive in the apocalypse. The Day is a do with cannibals, post-apocalyptic cannibal movie. It's watchable. Pontypool is about zombification, but it's a bit more of a social critique, sort of like a Dawn of the Dead. It takes place, it's a Canadian movie actually, and it's takes place in a radio studio while these guys are getting reports of what's happening and this outbreak, and really it's sort of making fun of fear and paranoia and stuff like that, and the media, and how we can be influenced and to go crazy and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. The Great Los Angeles Earthquake, some people might have watched that. I'm in my 30s now, so I seen it when I was much younger, but there's an excellent 15-minute scene of the earthquake happening, and it's quite interesting. It's one of those very plausible scenarios. Pandemic is another movie. It's not the greatest movie either, but you know, it makes you think about a few things anyways. Demolition Man is one of my dystopian favorites. I think if there is a future, it's going to look like the future portrayed in Demolition Man. So most people have seen that. It's more popular, but if you haven't, check it out. Knowing is another one with Nicolas Cage. Very high budget movie and has a very intense ending. Doesn't really deal with the apocalyptic stuff right away, but sort of stuff leading up to it. Vanishing on 7th Street is a movie about people who are trying to, there's this, I don't know, this dark force which is taking people away, and anybody, basically if you're not in the light, in the presence of some light, this dark force takes you away. So it's these people trying to stay in the light as much as possible throughout the night of this event. Miracle Mile is a old cult classic from the 80s, I believe. And it's about a guy who gets some intel, just an average Joe, that, you know, their mutually assured destruction is upon them, and that Russia is launching nuclear missiles at the United States, and, you know, that there's only so many hours for them to get out of the city. So he tries to tell, it's his whole journey of him trying to explain to people that shit's going to hit the fan. Robinson Crusoe, lots of people probably seen that. Just a guy trying to survive on an island. It's actually more of a family movie, but there's a few survival, you know, components to it, a few things that you might want to take into consideration. It's a fun movie to watch. Sunshine is about, it's a sci-fi film about how the sun is burning out or something like that. They need to restart it with a bunch of nuclear warheads, and basically the goings on this ship while they're doing that, and how, you know, the psychological aspects of that, of living in tight quarters with people for long periods of time, and how people go crazy and stuff like that. Pandorum is very similar, another sci-fi movie. Definitely check that one out. It's about, you know, the Earth has been, well, I'm not going to ruin it for you. It's hard for me to explain it without ruining it. But Pandorum, another interesting one. Take Shelter is a movie about a young guy who, or not a young guy, a guy with a family who, they think he's paranoid and stuff like that because he's building these bunkers in his backyard, and it's all about how he's a prepper and everybody sort of thinks he's crazy. Threads is a movie about nuclear war, takes place in Britain, probably one of the best apocalyptic movies, or doomsday nuclear war movies ever made. Much better than The Day After. The Crazies is a zombie movie, 2010. Very good show. The Grey is a survival movie with Liam Neeson, and it's about a bunch of oil riggers who, his plane goes down and they're hunted by wolves essentially, and they have to try to get back to civilization. Frozen is a movie about some skiers who get caught up on a ski lift and have to survive, and have to survive the night in the cold. It's a very interesting movie also. The Purge and The Purge Anarchy, the newer one, are about basically once a year in the future in the United States, in order to quell crime and keep crime low, people are given one day to commit as many heinous acts as they want. And it's definitely interesting from a shit hits the fan perspective, from the violence perspective. I'm not sure if it would play out like that, but people are allowed to break the law, so there's basically the ones who go out and purge, and the ones who just sort of stay home and try to live throughout the night. The Colony is another sort of global warming one, kind of along the lines of The Day After Tomorrow, where I can't remember what happened in the show exactly, global cooling or something. Basically, the ice age comes and everybody's forced underground, but there's cannibalistic elements to it also. The Stand by Stephen King, a classic. It's a 8-hour epic about basically this pandemic that wipes most of the people off the earth, and it's all about the war between the good people and the bad people, the good and evil, after in the post-apocalypse. 12 Monkeys is about a virus that breaks out and kills most of humanity, and it's not really a post-apocalyptic movie, but it definitely makes you think about certain things, because there's really good acting, excellent acting. I think it's probably Brad Pitt's best role, to tell you the truth. But definitely a psychological thriller nonetheless. 9 is a movie about, it's actually a really good movie. It's about, it's an animated film, and it's more of a kids movie, but it's actually kind of interesting, I thought. It's basically the aftermath of World War III or something like that, and these little robots are going around, and I guess they've been endowed with consciousness, and they're trying to make sense of life on Earth after this World War III. Wall-E is similar. It's a dystopian film where it's another children's film where the people have basically destroyed the planet, and now they all live in space. And it's kind of similar to Elysium, which is another one I'll mention. And that's a very good film. Most people know about that one, so definitely check that out. In Time is another one. Not the greatest acting, but it's a very interesting concept. Justin Timberlake, in the future, you're given a certain amount of time to live, and the whole objective is to, get more time, as opposed to, it goes with the saying, time is money. Another movie is The Day the Earth Stood Still. And I believe this is one about nanotechnology, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it's the one that's about the nanotech. It's either that one or The Happening. I know The Happening, I think that one might be about when all the plants start killing off people. They start emitting this gas that kills off, or that, no. It's, plants start emitting some sort of gas which make people start killing themselves in any way possible. So you have mass suicide throughout the world. And The Day the Earth Stood Still is about nanotechnology and this nanotech virus, which is sort of ravaging the planet. I think I Am Legend, classic. Most people have seen that. Probably one of the best apocalyptic films ever made. 28 Weeks Later and 28 Days Later, probably some of the best zombie films ever made. Testament, I believe that one was a nuclear war movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but I know it was decent. Swiss Family Robinson, interesting. It's sort of along the lines of Deliverance. There was a common theme there, people trying to get off grid, and the trials and tribulations of that. One man trying to bring his family into upon recognition that, humanity is mismanaging the world's resources, that he needs to go off grid and teach his family how to live off the grid. Carriers, as I've mentioned before, a more modern pandemic movie. Jeremiah, another pandemic post-apocalyptic movie. Survivors, another pandemic post-apocalyptic TV show. Actually, Jeremiah was also a TV show. I did a review on that one not too long ago. Of course, Dawn of the Dead and Jericho were two other good ones. Now, like I said, there's a lot of other movies on here that I could have put on here, but I didn't, because they're either too popular or I just didn't feel that they were good enough in my opinion. I think there's another one called Bird Flu in America, and it was a made-for-TV movie, definitely propaganda based, but nonetheless was thought-provoking. And that's really all these movies are, is they're meant to be thought-provoking. They're not meant to be guidelines for what you would do or what you should do in a SHTF situation. It's just to get you thinking about the many possibilities, the many scenarios that might arise under those circumstances, and just so you can better have all your bases covered and be able to anticipate what may come to pass. So I'm going to end it there, and let me know if you have any other videos in mind. And by all means, feel free to like the video. That would be great.